yeah. 두려움은 없어. 하! 빛으로 가득 채워. Herein is our love made perfect, that we may have boldness in the day of judgment. Because as He is, so are we in this world. So are we in this world.
You know, when we talk about tragedies, there's this phrase that always surfaces, and I mean, it's meant to be comforting, but if you really think about it, it's actually kind of terrifying.
Right, the classic appeal to divine permission, a very common coping mechanism.
It is, but it's a coping mechanism that paints a really, really grim picture. It creates this image in my head of what I call the spreadsheet god.
The spreadsheet god. Okay, paint that picture for me.
So imagine a cosmic middle manager, right? Just sitting at this endless gray desk, wearing a headset, holding a clipboard, and just scrolling through this massive Excel sheet of human suffering.
Checking off boxes.
Literally just checking off boxes, like, tornado in the Midwest. Yep, authorized that. Chronic illness. Scheduled that for Tuesday.
Right, which is incredibly bleak.
Exactly. So welcome to today's deep dive. I'm so glad you're here with us today because our mission is to take that exact idea, that deterministic spreadsheet god, and completely shatter it.
And we're going to do that by looking at some original Greek translations that, frankly, upend everything we assume about how this works.
Yes, we are going to rethink human suffering, free will, and the role of the divine. So let's just start right at the foundation. Is God actually up there directing the tragedies like some, celestial film director?
Not at all. And it's a profound misunderstanding of the text to think so. That whole bureaucratic view, the cosmic puppeteer, it completely contradicts the fundamental rules of existence established in the original languages.
So he's not writing the script?
No, God is not a director of tragedies. I mean, if he were just checking off boxes on a spreadsheet, authorizing every awful thing from a distance, then our actions wouldn't actually be our own. We'd just be actors reading lines.
Okay, I really want to dig into this. Because if God isn't directing the tragedies, what exactly is He doing when the bad things happen? People usually just shrug and say, well, He gave us free will.
Right, which has become such a cliche.
Exactly. Free will is such a buzzword now, it almost means nothing. We need to look at the true meaning of human agency here.
Exactly. We casually toss around free will like it's just the ability to choose what you want for dinner. But in the biblical context, agency is a much heavier, almost terrifyingly profound concept.
Terrifyingly profound. I like that.
It is. Agency is the raw, uncoerced power to move through existence. It's the inherent capacity of a human being to act independently and literally alter reality. And here's the foundational part. It's a capacity that God absolutely refuses to violate.
Wow. Okay. So true agency means humans have the very real, totally unsupervised power to cause immense harm or to extend incredible love.
Precisely. Because if he grabbed the wheel the moment you made a wrong turn, your agency would be an illusion. You'd be a puppet. But the mechanics of how he sustains that agency is where the theology gets really fascinating.
Okay, lay the mechanics on me. How does he do it?
Well, he isn't just watching you drive from a safe distance. He is the physical engine of the car. Let's look at Colossians chapter 1, verse 17. It says that in Christ, all things hold together.
All things.
All things. Or consider Hebrews chapter 1, verse 3, which says, He sustains all things by His powerful word. He is literally physically holding every atom in existence in its place.
Wait, hold on. Let's think about the logistics of that for a second. Every single atom. So if someone is, committing a violent crime, God is actively holding the atoms of their physical body together in that exact moment.
Yes. The scriptures are incredibly consistent and frankly uncompromising on this point.
Really?
Yes. Look back at Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. God breathes the breath of life into humanity. It's a continuous sustenance. In Job chapter 12, verse 10, it explicitly says the life of every living thing and the breath of all mankind is in His hand.
Oh, wow. So it's not just a one-time battery charge?
Exactly. Job chapter 33, verse 4 repeats this. The breath of the Almighty gives life. And Psalm chapter 104, verses 29 and 30 illustrates how God gives and gathers breath. God is the active, continuous source of all physical existence.
So when a tragedy occurs at the hands of a person, God is actively sustaining the physical existence of both the victim and the perpetrator.
Yes. He is holding their atoms in place, providing the very breath the perpetrator uses to commit the act. But because his commitment to human agency is absolute, he will not force the perpetrator's hand to stay still.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around the physics of this. It's like, okay, imagine God provides the electricity to a house.
Okay, I follow.
He's the local power grid, right?
Mhm.
He supplies the raw energy required for anything in that house to function, but we're the ones standing in the living room deciding whether to plug in a space heater to warm up a freezing guest or to plug in a faulty toaster and burn the whole place down.
That is a remarkably accurate analogy.
Right, like God doesn't cut the power to the entire neighborhood just because we picked up the toaster.
He provides the raw power for the movement, but the human dictates the moral direction of that movement.
I mean, I love that analogy, but it leads me to a massive contradiction.
Oh.
Yeah. You're saying God doesn't micromanage tragedy, he just provides the power. But people quote the Bible back at me all the time to prove he does micromanage. What about the famous sparrow verse?
Ah, yes. The sparrow.
People quote that constantly, like, oh, God signs off on every little bird falling from the sky. And if he's signing off on a sparrow dying, he's definitely signing off on car crashes and terminal illnesses. Doesn't that put the clipboard right back in his hands?
You've hit on one of the most frustrating theological bottlenecks in modern English reading. To reconcile it, we really have to look at the historical translations.
Wait, are you saying the English translations have it wrong?
That specific verse about the sparrow is the victim of a massive and, quite frankly, tragic mistranslation. In many mainstream versions, they insert a theological bias that just isn't in the original text.
No way. Seriously.
Seriously, let's look closely at Matthew chapter 10, verse 29. If you read the New International Version, it says, "A sparrow will not fall to the ground, quote, outside your father's care."
Okay. Yeah, I've heard that one.
Other translations say without your father's consent or without your father's will. The New Living Translation says it won't fall without your father knowing it.
Right, without his consent. That sounds exactly like the cosmic permission slip I was talking about. Like, I, the spreadsheet god, authorize this specific sparrow to plummet at 2 p.m.
Exactly. English translators in recent centuries often favored a highly deterministic theology, so they inserted words like consent, will, or knowing into the text. They framed God as a distant observer.
But that's not what the original says.
No. If we go back to the original Greek, the word used there is aneu, A-N-E-U.
Aneu. Okay, I've literally never heard that. What is the actual definition?
Aneu is a preposition that simply means apart from. It absolutely does not mean without permission. It doesn't mean without knowing. The true, strict, literal translation of Matthew chapter 10, verse 9 is, "Not apart from your father does a sparrow fall."
Wait, not apart from... Oh my God.
Think about the linguistic shift there.
God didn't sign a permission slip from a desk in the clouds for the sparrow to die.
No. Jesus is saying that when the sparrow falls, God is not apart from the falling. He is intimately in the suffering. He is falling with the sparrow.
That is... Wow. That is a staggering difference. We've totally turned a statement about profound intimacy into a statement about bureaucratic paperwork.
We really have. It shifts the entire paradigm of how we view God in the midst of tragedy. He's not a distant spectator. He is intimately present in the very atoms of the suffering itself.
It changes everything.
Look at Acts chapter 17, verse 25. It tells us he himself gives everyone life and breath and everything else. And just 3 verses later, in Acts chapter 17, verse 28, Paul states, "For in him we live and move and have our being." God dwells within the fabric of our existence.
So he isn't sitting at a desk filling out the boxes of our suffering. He's trapped in the boxes with us.
Yes.
If someone is suffering, God is physically right there in their atoms, absorbing the impact alongside them.
That is the theological truth of aneu. God is the presence that moves with you, even to the darkest, most painful consequences of human agency.
Okay, this brings a huge comfort, obviously, but if I'm being honest, it also raises a really disturbing question.
Which is?
If God is literally inside the atoms of the victim, like if he's sustaining their breath and falling with them and feeling their terror and pain, what happens to the person causing the pain?
Oh.
The person holding the toaster, so to speak. Because if God is in the victim, the perpetrator isn't just hurting a human.
That is the most terrifying and profound implication of the Greek word aneu. And it bridges directly into the ontological reality of hell.
Okay, ontological reality. For those of us who didn't go to seminary, let's define that really quick. Ontology is like the philosophical study of being, right? The actual physics and nature of reality.
Correct. It means we aren't talking about metaphors or poetic justice here. We're talking about the mechanics of existence. Let's look at the verse immediately preceding the sparrow verse. Jesus is building a logical argument.
Okay, what does it say?
Matthew chapter 10, verse 28 says, "Do not be afraid of those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Rather, be afraid of the one who could destroy both soul and body in hell." Traditionally, how is that verse usually taught?
Oh, usually it's taught as a direct threat, like a judge handing down a sentence, behave yourself, or the big boss will throw you into a pit of fire when you die.
Right? An external imposed punishment. But if we read Matthew chapter 10, verse 28, through the lens of Matthew chapter 10, verse 29, through the reality of aneu,
Yeah,
it changes completely.
because of the atoms.
Yes. If God is dwelling in the cells of the victim, intimately sustaining them, then when someone strikes that victim, they are physically striking God.
Oh, wow.
It's akin to a parent holding a child. If you strike the child, you are assaulting the parent who is wrapping their arms around them. The parent feels that pain on a visceral level.
That is genuinely unsettling to think about. Every time human agency is used to inflict abuse, the abuser is directly physically assaulting the creator who is holding the victim's atoms together.
Exactly. So what then is hell in an ontological sense? Christian theology speaks of a bodily resurrection at the end of time.
Right.
Hell is described as the ultimate state where a perpetrator, resurrected physically, is finally stripped of all their self-deception and forced to completely confront the massive pain and divine wrath they caused to the God who is dwelling inside their victims.
So it's not a torture chamber God created out of spite.
Not at all. It's the unbearable, burning reality of confronting the true weight of their own agency.
That completely recontextualizes verses that I always just thought were nice moral guidelines.
Like which ones?
Think about Matthew chapter 7, verse 12, the golden rule. So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. Or Matthew chapter 25, verse 40, where Jesus says, "Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me."
Yes, exactly.
I always read that as Jesus being poetic, like, oh, I love these people so much, it's as if you did it to me.
But they are not metaphors. He was speaking literal ontological physics.
That makes the golden rule feel way less like a cute suggestion for a bumper sticker and more like a warning about the fabric of reality.
It really does.
Treat others how you want to be treated isn't just about being polite. It's a law of physics because you are physically interacting with the divine presence inside them.
That is precisely the point. Because we are interconnected through the sustaining presence of God, through aneu, your treatment of others carries eternal physical weight. You cannot harm another person without harming the God who sustains them both.
Okay, this is a beautiful way to view human connection, but practically speaking, it leaves me feeling a bit helpless.
How so?
Well, here's my dilemma. God refuses to break our agency, our free will. He won't yank the wheel, but he is suffering with us in the atoms, feeling every blow. Are we just stuck?
Stuck in what way?
Like, are we just stuck in a locked room with bad actors? Is God just sitting there weeping with us, taking the punches, but totally paralyzed and unable to stop the bad guys because of his own rules about free will?
That is the pivotal question of human suffering. And the answer is no, we are absolutely not stuck. But because God refuses to be a puppeteer, he requires something specific from us in order to intervene.
What does he need?
In divine jurisprudence, he needs what we can call a legal entry point.
A legal entry point, like a loophole, or like an invitation.
It's a lawful invitation. Because God has established human agency as an inviolable law, he will not trespass on it. Therefore, he needs a human to exercise their agency to invite him in.
He needs a human on the ground to open the door.
Precisely. And the primary mechanism for this legal entry point is intercessory prayer.
Okay, so prayer isn't just wishing really hard into the ceiling. It's a functional mechanical lever in this whole system of agency.
It is the absolute prerequisite for divine intervention. Consider Romans chapter 8, verse 27. It talks about the Spirit interceding for God's people.
Okay.
That intercession, that human-partnered prayer, is the required setup for the very next verse, which everyone loves to quote. Romans chapter 8, verse 20. The promise that in all things God works for the good of those who love him.
Oh, notice the order there.
Exactly. God working all things for good requires the legal entry point of intercession mentioned in the previous sentence.
That makes so much sense. So when we use our agency, our uncoerced freedom to actually ask God to intervene, we are granting him jurisdiction. We open a door that allows him to rush in and act without breaking his own laws of free will.
Precisely. And the Greek text shows us that when that door is open, God does not hesitate.
He doesn't.
No. Look at Matthew chapter 14, verse 31. Peter steps out of the boat, gets terrified by the storm, and begins sinking into the water. He uses his agency to cry out, "Lord, save me." The Greek word used for Jesus' response in that exact moment is eutheos.
Eutheos. Let me guess. It doesn't mean he thought about it for a while.
Not quite. It means hurriedly, immediately, or straight away. And what action does he take eutheos? He reaches out. The Greek word is ektino.
Okay, so hurriedly reaching out.
Right. When we provide the legal entry point through our agency, God moves eutheos hurriedly to ektino, to stretch out his hand and turn the evil into good, pulling us out of the water.
I'm thinking of a story in our sources that perfectly encapsulates this exact mechanic. It's the story of Stephen in the book of Acts.
Ah, yes. The stoning of Stephen, a brilliant example of this principle.
Right. Let's look at Acts chapter 7, verse 60. Stephen is literally being executed. A mob is throwing heavy stones at him to kill him. And what does he do?
He prays.
Yes, he doesn't just passively accept it. He uses his dying agency, using the very breath that God is actively sustaining in his lungs to pray out loud for his executioners. He shouts, "Lord, do not hold this sin against them."
Incredible agency.
In the middle of an absolute tragedy, while God is falling with him in the aneu sense, Stephen uses his free will to provide a massive legal entry point.
And we must look at the historical result of that legal entry point. God used Stephen's intercessory prayer to completely transform the trajectory of one of the men presiding over that very execution.
A man named Saul.
Yes, Saul, who was holding the coats of the men throwing the stones.
Saul, who becomes the Apostle Paul, who goes on to write half the New Testament. God couldn't just puppet master the mob into dropping their rocks because that violates agency. But because Stephen opened the door with a prayer of forgiveness, God could hurriedly move in, reach out, and flip the script for all of human history through Paul.
It's astounding when you see the mechanics of it.
It suddenly makes total sense why Jesus commands us to bless our enemies. It isn't just about taking the moral high ground. Our enemies are being physically sustained by God in that exact moment of conflict.
If you truly understand that God is holding the very atoms of your enemy together and dwelling within them, your only logical response, ontologically speaking, is to pray for them. Your prayer is the lawful medium that allows God's grace to intervene in their destructive agency.
I have to admit, this deep dive has completely shifted how I view the world. Let's just trace our steps back for a second.
Let's do it.
Because we started with this really depressing, bureaucratic idea of the spreadsheet God, the middle manager checking off our tragedies as part of a pre-written plan. But looking at the original languages, we see that agency is our raw, terrifying freedom to move, for better or worse.
And God will not violate that freedom.
Right. And God, because of the truth of aneu, is the presence that moves with us. He falls with the sparrow. He's not a distant spectator up in the clouds. He is intimately right there in our atoms, absorbing the deepest pains of our worst choices.
But he's also waiting.
Yes, he's waiting for us to use our voice, to use our agency to pray, providing that legal entry point so he can hurriedly reach in and turn the tide.
It is a theological framework that demands we completely reorient how we view every single interaction we have with another human being.
It really does. It takes the abstract concept of faith and turns it into the gritty physics of everyday life.
In fact, I'd like to leave you with a final thought to ponder as you step back out into that everyday life.
Oh, please do.
Consider this. If every single person you interact with today, even the ones who frustrate you the most, the coworker who undermines you, the stranger who cuts you off in traffic, if every one of them is physically sustained by the breath of a God who intimately feels everything you do to them, how does that realization change the very next words you choose to speak?
Wow, what an incredible question to walk away with. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. I hope exploring these ancient texts brought you as much clarity and challenge as it brought us. Keep asking questions, be mindful of each other's atoms out there, and I will catch you on the next one.
Ooh, ooh, yeah. 두려움은 없어. 하! 빛으로 가득 채워.